Welcome to the Evolvepreneur Podcast Show. My very special guest today is Jocelyn Sams. He's host, and Jocelyn, who actually introduced us, is host of the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. They are former school teachers who've had a negative experience at work, which turned to a catalyst. There's lots of things happen this way. Catalyst of starting our own business back in 2012 and becoming totally self-employed in 2013. Their mission is to help family-focused people start and grow online memberships and recurring websites, and they want to spread the message as far as wide as possible, and so they can spend time with their families since they flip their lives. So that's very interesting. Thanks, Shane, for coming along.
Hey, John, man, thanks for having me on the podcast. I got to say, I love to hear Australians talk. But then what's funny is when I came over, I went to Asia one time and I met a bunch of Australians, and I found out they love to hear Southern people from the United States talk. So we're going to get a lot of people with some good accents on this one today, man.
That's good. yeah, it is funny. Like it's quite funny. Like it's the old, you can't be a prophet in your own town, right?
That's right. Everybody knows what you sound like, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to sound different somewhere else.
Yeah, you just got to stand out. So Aussies always stand out, and usually it's funny with Aussies and New Zealanders. Actually, you go anywhere in the world, and we're a small country, like we're tiny. We're not much bigger than California combined, right? And New Zealand's even smaller. But an Aussie will pop up in any sort of these countries, and it's because we travel so much.
Yeah, everywhere.
And I think
everywhere I go, I run into Australians. I can't go to a conference without meeting somebody from Australia. I could be in St. Louis, and there'd be a few Australians floating around in the room somewhere. So,
yeah.
It's awesome. We love Australians, man. It's great.
So this whole pandemic kind of screwed that up. So
I've not been anywhere in a while, and nobody has. So, back in the day before the pandemic, that's how.
Exactly.
For the rest
Talk
of
about communication skills. At some point, I think we've lost it. Right? It's like, who's a real person? All right. So let's talk about just a bit of background on how you got to where you were, because I think it's always important to know. Because I think a lot of times people do things, and interesting, your story. Like I started my own business out of frustration and circumstance, and I think that's the way that most entrepreneurs fall into this game. They don't wake up one morning and say, "Hey, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to drive myself crazy for the next 2 years." They're going to, they kind of like...
Or 10, it depends, maybe.
Yeah. So most people don't plan this, I don't think. Not this kind of thing anyway. So tell me, you're a school teacher. You basically, had a negative experience at work. What was that kind of negative experience? What happened there?
Well, I'll tell you what it was, man. I grew up in a small town in Southeast Kentucky, and I was fortunate enough to have parents that sent me to college, and I got a degree, and they always said, get a sure thing, get a sure job, right? And my dad was adamant to get a teaching degree. He's like, they always need teachers. You get a steady paycheck, you get insurance, and you get to retire. So that was the dream, right? That was what I had put in front of me. And I did that, man. I went to school, became a social studies teacher, taught United States history. I was a football coach. And my wife actually was also a teacher. She was an elementary school librarian. So like each little school has a library, and she was in charge of that. And man, we were on that good enough path, that good enough lifestyle, getting paid every Friday, but it ran out on Thursday. And if we got sick, we had health insurance. And that's what I thought I'd do my whole life. And I actually had something really, really terrible happen in our family. Like most people who work full time and have a commute to work. And, we had to have childcare. So we had a daycare center, and we had this gem of a daycare center that our kids went to when they were 3 years old and about 1.5. Ran by this little old lady who was more the grandmother of the town than the actual owner of a business, right? Like everybody's like, that's Mimi. That's Mimi. That's who that is, right? And she actually retired and sold the business to some of her employees. And what we didn't know in the background was happening was that the people who bought it were starting to fire everybody and hiring in new people. They were untrained, very cheap. And one morning I actually found out that a worker at the daycare center was abusing my son. They were locking him in a bathroom for hours at a time to punish him for potty training accidents. And we would later find out they were doing all kinds of horrible things. Some people in the building got arrested. One lady would punish kids by holding them down on the floor, and you'd take a beanbag chair and sit on them and hold them down.
Wow.
And how I discovered this, John, was my son would not go into the building. He was freaking out. I was trying to get him out of the car seat. It was a cold winter morning. He had one of those big puffy coats on that you can't.
Kids don't hide stuff very well, right? They don't.
That's right. No, they don't. And he was like screaming and hollering. He's like, no. And he was just becoming verbal. He was 3.5 years old, something like that. And I said, why don't you want to go in? And he said, she scares me. And I said, who scares you? And he said the name of the person. I started probing a little more, and I couldn't figure out exactly what had happened in that moment, but I knew something was really wrong, and I couldn't leave my son at that place. So I actually took my son to my daughter's daycare center, but that was a facility that was only for 2 years old and down. And a lady was there that had kept Isaac when he was a baby, and she said, "Hey, you're going to have to come back. You can leave him here while you run to work and tell him what's going on." Because I couldn't get a hold of my principal. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. And she said, "But you got to come back." So I went to work, got a fellow teacher to watch my classroom for a minute, went down to the principal's office and explained the situation to an interim vice principal who was sitting at her desk, exactly what I just told you. And man, I'll never forget it. She took off her glasses. She was an older lady, and she laid them on the table, and she leaned back and looked at me like a grown-up about to teach a young man a lesson. You ever seen that look on people's faces before, man? And she said, "Mr. Sams, it sounds like your son's not in immediate danger." And I said, "Well, he's not in immediate danger right now, but I've got to go deal with this. I got nothing to watch him. I got to go get them." And she said, "It's too late to get a sub. I have too much on my agenda. I just can't watch your class. I know your son needs you, but your job needs you too, and you're going to have to handle your personal problems.
You have to choose
after work."
You have to choose. She put you in a choice.
That's right, man. And I sat there and I said, "What will happen if I leave?" She goes, "Well, you can't just leave. That's derelict of duty. I mean, a teacher in America, you're under legal contract to watch other people's children. I mean, you can't just take off. There's consequences." And she said, "You could be in trouble." And I said, "Well, I'm just going to have to risk that. My son needs me." And I left. And John, I looked at myself in the mirror. I caught my eye in the rearview mirror, the one hanging on the middle of your windshield. And I just got so mad, like righteous fury in my soul, like I had never felt. But I wasn't mad at the daycare worker. I wasn't mad at the principal. I was mad at myself because I had given so much control of my life to someone else for the promise of a steady paycheck and maybe retire someday. And I was so mad at myself. And I made a promise, dude, that I would find a way to become and stay self-employed so that the next time or whenever my children or my family needed me, I would never be in a position to make that choice again. Now, it didn't happen overnight. I didn't know how I was going to do it, man. It took months and months of research and trying to figure something out. But that's what sent me down the quest of becoming an entrepreneur.
Wow. Yeah, that's an amazing story. And I think I always say to someone, they say, what do you do? And I say, "I'm self-employed." And they go, "I guess the opportunity to work as long hours as you like." Right?
That's exactly. You trade set. We're the only people that will leave a 40-hour job for an 80-hour job.
Yeah, that's right. And make half the money, right?
But you know what, man? When your why is strong enough, and when you value freedom and control and power over your life and your future, and you get to wake up every day and you get to pick what you do with every minute every day, you don't work 80 hours. You chose every minute of those 80 hours, and it becomes an entirely different situation.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really work, is it? It's more, I guess, play sometimes. Like you're just mucking around with stuff when you're trying things, and no one's going to let you do that in a normal business normally because you probably send them broke, right?
Well, the first thing I had to do was convince my wife to let me muck around and try some things to figure out what we could do. Because when I told her that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, my wife Jocelyn, she's a very logical, fully reasoned person, and it was just like, "Shane, we have degrees. We have master's degrees. We have picked this path. We have a good life. What are you talking about?" And I went down this rabbit hole, man, I looked at all kinds of different things to try. We started looking at, the first thing, of course, I fell into I was like, I wonder if this MLM thing's got anything to it. And
MLM affiliates is always the first place to start because
that's where you go, right?
Google, right?
That's right, man. You work backwards. And I said, and I quickly realized that's not a good place to be. I'm going to leave that dark side of the internet over there. And started looking at affiliates, started looking at I started looking at real world things too, man. Like, could I be a pressure washer? Could I pressure wash people's houses and make enough money to put food on the table? And my wife reminded me that there's this thing called winter where people don't wash houses, right? So, I mean, I couldn't do that. I couldn't mow yards. I thought I'd be a handyman or a house inspector, but then my wife again reminded me I'm not very handy. And I would not have any clue what would happen in a house inspection, right? And then one day, man, I was out mowing my grass. And I was listening. I had an iPod. Remember those little square iPods?
Yeah, I've got one still somewhere.
Yeah, man. I have one of those back in the day. I'm an old OG online person, right? So I had my iPod out, and I said, I wonder if there's anything I can listen to about business. So I start flipping through, I search for a business podcast, and I'm flipping through the art, and I see this art of this guy, and it was like just his eyes looking over the bottom of the screen. And I was like, what is this? Who is this weirdo? So I click on it, I go to his website, and in the top corner of his blog, it was a picture of him holding his son, and his son was about the same age as mine. Right. And this guy's name is Pat Flynn, the Smart Passive Income podcast, and a huge podcaster. I mean, you're a great guy. And this was really early in his journey. And I started listening to it, and I said, well, this guy's talking about online business. Let's see what this is all about. And as I'm listening, while I'm cutting my grass, he starts telling the story of how he started a blog, and then he created a PDF, and it was a study guide for this architecture test. And he built an audience on his blog, and he sold them this PDF for $50. And he made like $9,000 on his first launch. And dude, I was in the car with my wife like 2 weeks before this. And I was so frustrated that I hadn't found a good idea. And I was looking out the passenger side window. My wife was driving. And I just, for some reason, this thought came in my head. I wonder if I could get 100 people to give me $50, because there's like 7 billion people on the planet. Surely I can convince 100 of them to give me $50. And I told Jocelyn, hey, look, if we could get 100 people to pay us $50 a month, that would be 60 grand a year. We could quit our jobs. And of course, my logical, beautiful, amazing wife looked at me and said, how are you going to do that? And I had no clue how I was going to do that. But when I heard Pat Flynn say this, I said, oh my gosh, that's how I can do it. I can monetize my wisdom and my experience and sell it on the internet. And I jumped off that lawnmower, dude, and it just kept going. Like I remember I jumped off, and it was going right. I ran back to the house. I busted in the door, and I said, Jocelyn, I figured it out. I know how I'm going to get 100 people to give me $50 a month. I'm going to sell them emails. That's exactly what I said, which sounds preposterous when I say it out loud now. And my wife, she just looked at me like I was an idiot, and she said, that's great, honey. You just finish the grass. We'll talk about it later. But that
lawnmower.
I got the lawnmower. I found the lawnmower, man. And so I went back out, finished it, and I started just consuming anything I could find about creating content, email marketing, making money online. And that's what sent me down the rabbit hole of building websites and trying things. But again, for everybody listening, this wasn't the miraculous turn in the journey. Right. It was like
you went on overnight success.
Oh, dude, because you know how you go down the MLM route in the offline world. In the online world, you start looking at Google AdWords and affiliate links and ClickBank and all those crazy things that we used to try to make money on. But that's when I started building websites and stuff like that.
So I guess that it comes down to this whole thing. Like I think a lot of these people say, well, I'm going to start a membership site. I'm going to charge so much per month per money. Good. That's great English, that was. So
it ain't got to be perfect, baby.
I don't think I've had enough coffee yet today, maybe. I don't know what's going on here. All right. So you're going to charge so much per month. How do you find those people? And I think that's the critical piece of the information I've seen a lot of times, and I think a lot of the membership sites and how to build a membership site thing, they focus on who your customer is and who they should be. And after going through all this, I've realised that that's the bit that everybody skips over. All right, They skip past that one. They move on to the sexy stuff like building websites and building courses. And
sales.
Let's not worry about who we're going to sell to right now. Let's just worry about building this thing. They will come, right? And what I've noticed is they don't come. Like you build this fantastic, you spend a fortune building something, and no one comes.
That's right. That's right. Because you got to actually go out and create something that people want and put it in front of the right people to do it. So how do you do that? So I did not know that part in the beginning. I bought all the courses you're talking about. Yeah. I built the email autoresponder. I built the this, that, and the other. And I built this website. My first website was actually, it was called USHistoryWorksheets.com. And I was like, here's what I'll do. I'll make free worksheets for history teachers, and I'll put it in the middle of the page, and I'll surround it with as much spam as possible and hope someone accidentally clicks it and gives me money. So that was my grand scheme. No text, no content, no nothing. Right.
Okay.
And so I was out there, and I tried this for months and months and months. And of course I did all the things that the gurus said, but nobody came to the website. And I started like, okay, well, maybe I'll add a paragraph here. Maybe I'll try a sentence there. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do that. And dude, I was about to give up. I mean, this was not working. And it's why a lot of people give up, because they work their way through all the funnels and all that stuff first, and they don't know how to build traffic. So I'm sitting there one night and I'm laying in bed and I'm depressed. You ever been so depressed? You're like laying on your bed without a pillow and your laptop is like on your chest and you're like trying to move the mouse with your chin. Like that's the state of depression that I was in at this moment, right? Like I was so bad because like every time I checked AdWords or Google or whatever, it always said zero, right? It always said zero. And I shut my computer and I got up and I threw it over to the side. And this was like my come to Jesus moment, in my entrepreneurial journey. I was about to give up. I was about to quit. And I went to the bathroom to get ready for bed. And I didn't even turn the light on. I remember going to use the restroom, looking out at the moon shining through the window. I walked over to my mirror and I was brushing my teeth in the dark. This is the pit of despair, guys. And when I think back about this night, I always remember that the light of Jocelyn's lamp was shining on one half of my face, and the darkness of the abyss of my bathroom was on the other side. Yeah, man, it's like a Batman moment, right? And I just stopped, man, the toothbrush in my mouth, dude, and I said a little prayer, and I just said, God, look, is this real? Like, can you actually make money on the internet? Because I've been trying for a long time and I ain't made a dime. And I've been putting hours and hours of work. I've sold everything I could in every yard sale every weekend to make enough money to buy every course I can find. And nothing is happening. So if you want to give me a sign to go back to teaching, and that's my lot in life, I accept that. If you want to but if it's real, give me something to show that it's happening. And I was just done, man. And I don't know what made me do it, dude, but I opened my computer and I said, you know what, before I go to bed, I'm going to check one more time what's going on in my analytics. And I hit refresh. And where a zero had been there before, there was 11 cents in my AdSense account. And I was like, I just prayed for a dime and God showed off and gave me a dime and a penny just to prove he could do it. And I started going crazy. Like I was celebrating. I'm an excitable guy. I mean, this was touchdown at the Super Bowl, or what do y'all do down there? You got Aussie rules football, whatever you call it.
Yeah, a couple of different brands.
Right? I was going crazy, man. And Jocelyn was like, what are you doing? And I flipped it around and I said, look, this is real. I created content, I put it on the internet, and somebody sent money back. And if we can make 11 cents, we can make $11, maybe $1,100. And every other time on this journey, my wife had looked at me like I was crazy. But this time she tilted her head and said, what else could we do? And that left us staying up all night to figure out, why did this happen? Why did this money show up in our account? And we tracked it back to a blog post where I had actually written a real blog post about the worksheet. And that was when the click happened. Like, oh my God, you've got to create useful, valuable content that can be found by people. It can help them. And then they'll take the next step, whether that's get on your email list or buy your membership or whatever it is you want them to do online. And we started basically our next plan was to launch lesson plan websites, full-blown lesson plans, bell-to-bell instruction for every day of the year. And we would build this on the top of podcasts and blogs. Right. And that's really been the magic for us, is like, hey, be consistent and create content. Be prolific and go out there and share your content and run ads to your content. Be relentless and ask people for contact information. Send them emails every single week. And that formula of consistent, prolific, and relentless content is how we built audiences in every brand. And we've done this in Elementary Librarian. I created a football coaching website where we sold playbooks. We created my U.S. history teachers website, which we still have today. We actually sold Elementary Librarian a few years ago. And that's how we built Flipped Lifestyle. It's all based on building an audience that turns into a list, which turns in to a membership. And that's been the formula for us to actually, and we've started from nothing, dude. I didn't run an ad probably for the first 7 years of our business. It was just all organic content, really thinking about it and putting it out there to try to help people solve some problems.
The reality is, if you can't make organic content work, ads never going to work, right?
Amen. Yeah, amen, man. Because you're just going to drive traffic to terrible content.
Yeah, and right? You'll find that out the expensive way. That's right.
And like what you got to do is too, like, it's not just solving. Like this is another piece of bad advice. All you got to do is solve a problem. That's not true. You got to have a problem that has a bunch of little steps, and you got to solve all the steps. And that's what your content actually does. Some people think they just go out there and tell a story and it's going to inspire people to run up the hill and succeed. But that's not it. You got to break it down. Like, well, if this is the core problem, then these are the 35 other tactical problems that are under it. That's what my podcasts are about. That's what my blogs are about. And then we can curate all that into a plan for people to follow when they buy something from us in our membership sites, right?
So the reality here
is stop at that big problem.
So the reality here is that I think what happens is people, they want a blueprint, they want steps, they want to know how to do something, right? Because that's what
right.
you use YouTube for, to figure out how to build that thing that you're not very good at handyman with.
Yes.
And then you realize you actually need more help than that. But it's the reality is that they just don't want you to say, "Oh, solve a problem." And I think I saw something that Frank Kerner says quite interesting. He says, "Demonstrate that you can help someone by helping them." Right.
That's a great
quote. It
quote.
Makes a lot of sense, right? It's pretty simple, but it makes sense because at the end of the day, if you can demonstrate someone that you can help them, well, then they will ask you to help them, right?
Well, so here's what that's actually an interesting thing, because like here's what we figured out early in even in my podcast journey. So Flip Lifestyle, when it launched, at first I was going to interview experts. Now I have another podcast that I called Membership Masters, where I interview experts, right? But on Flip Lifestyle, at first it was me and Jocelyn just talking to each other about our journey. And people really related to it. But then we had an epiphany. What if we just demonstrated how we help people on every episode? And that's when we started. Our first guests were people from our email list. And we just gave them like a coaching call. We said, what's your biggest problem? And let's see if we can solve it and take their next step. And we've done like 400 or 500 episodes of that now, of just we bring people from our community on, we help them, and we go to the next step. It was the same thing in our school businesses too, because here's what we figured out. People didn't want lesson plans. They wanted to show up and put their classroom on autopilot from bell to bell so that they wouldn't have to plan lessons when they got home to be with their kids. And so they always knew what to do next. They wanted the curated blueprint. So we all of our content was always how to run your class from A to Z. Like, so if we wrote a blog post on Dr. Seuss Book Week, right? Then we would write, okay, here's what you do Monday through Friday on Dr. Seuss Book Week. Day one's Cat in the Hat. Day two's this. Day three's that, whatever. And that content drew people in. And then when they got done with that week, they wanted more. And the more was inside of the membership, and they would go join and pay $49 a month. Right.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's how we built everything.
By helping them.
Yes. You're helping them by helping them. Yeah. Every piece of content is not, can I rank for this? It's, can I impress someone so much that they'll go down the rabbit hole with me? And that's what we do right now with all of our content.
Interesting. I was at my local restaurant yesterday, and he comes up, the guy, I know him pretty well, I've done work for him before with website stuff, and he says to me, I need, my reviews seem to have, or not so much my reviews, my ranking in Google's dropped off and I'm not getting as much business. And I said, I've had this discussion with your wife before where your wife won't send emails. And she's scared to send emails because people might not like it. And I'm going, well, the reality is someone unsubscribes an email, that's good, because I think people get upset about that. But you want them to unsubscribe because they unsubscribe, they're not interested. You're just wasting time and money talking to someone who's not interested. You wouldn't do it in the street. So why would you do it on an email?
Hey, listen, I have a philosophy in email. I've emailed something like 2,000 emails in the last couple of years because we email every day. We email at least a segment of our list every day. And our philosophy is buy or unsubscribe. You either go to, you took this step, take the next step, or step off the train because we're going somewhere, and we only want people on the train that are going with us. Yeah. And you owe it to your list to sell them things. They asked you to give them more. That restaurant owner wants a steak. You got to tell them Friday steak night and it's on sale for 20%, or they're not going to know to come and buy the steak.
Well, that's what I said to him. I said, you like, we were there on yesterday. It's a Wednesday, 2:00, actually a bit early. No, 1:00. And we were the only people in the restaurant. And it's a busy shopping centre, man. It's a big, busy shopping centre. And I said, you could have 30% off Wednesdays, right? You could, but you can't communicate to your list because they send out a card with your birthday, vouchers. They've got a mailing list. They send out something in the mail. I said, but you won't send an email. So what's happening here is that you're now in a situation where you could easily, send out a segment to your list, offer a cheap Wednesday deal, or get them to come back, whatever. But you're not communicating to anyone else, and you're trying to bring new people in now. So you're all these people
a little
used
bit
to
of
come.
data. We're just a little bit of data. Heck, you could have Taco Tuesdays, and you could have Wonton Wednesdays, and you could have Thanksgiving Thursdays, and like you could email a list every day, and somebody's going to want the meal you're asking for. Exactly. And if I had a restaurant, I'd be sending emails probably twice a day. I'd be going breakfast, lunch, and dinner, three emails a day until you ate all my food or left the list.
Give up, right? And that's a funny thing about it. Like, it's like she was so adamant that she was never going to send emails because she didn't like getting them. And it's like, you're not your own customer. I think that's one thing that people got to remember. Yeah. They're not their own customer.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And I think that's a mistake.
Internal bias that we all, and we also like, you ever get like, I heard a great quote the other day. It was a Marcus Aurelius quote, and it said, I'm gonna butcher this, but it's because this is I'm from Kentucky and I butcher everything anyway. So whatever. But like, it said like, it always confuses me how men love themselves over everybody else. Like, I'm always being selfish and trying to be out for me, but I hate my opinion over everybody else's. Like, I care about everybody else's opinion more than my own, but yet I love myself over them. And that's what the email thing is. I think it's like, I don't want to offend you. I don't want you to leave the list. That'll make me feel rejected. But I heard Elon Musk on a video I watched today say, like, the biggest problem that most people have is they won't learn from the negative feedback, not because it's bad, because it's telling you something. It's telling you they don't want to be on your list. That's all it is. Yeah. And that's fine.
Well, your message is wrong. Maybe they did want to be on your list, but you said the wrong thing.
Said it wrong. Right. Exactly. Yeah, man.
And it's quite amazing how people get offended very easily. And it's like, it's very easy. It's a good saying I read. I don't even know where it came from. It said, if you haven't offended someone by midday, you're not marketing well enough.
That's a great quote. I need to add that on my wall over here of things to do before I send an email, schedule the next podcast, offend someone just at 11 o'clock every day. We'll just make someone mad.
Well, it works for Facebook, right? Because Facebook's engagement is all about being offended.
Oh yeah, man. I love ads I love ads when people say hater stuff on me, because I'm like, thank you for that bump. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's going to show it to more people now. I appreciate that hate.
It can't be that bad, right? That's usually what people think, right? So let's swing back to membership sites in terms of, what do you think the first couple of things that people should focus on? Because I think what happens is, in my experience, where people go wrong is lack of focus. They focus on the wrong things at the wrong time.
Yes.
Thinking it's important. And I think that's the danger that you can get yourself into, is not focusing on what's important.
There's three key things that every membership site has. And I say this from running 5 or 6 membership sites of my own. And I've coached thousands of people in our community, and I've seen memberships teaching people how to raise backyard chickens. We got people that are up in North Dakota shearing sheep and sewing them into teddy bears, and she's got like 400 members. And I've seen the gamut of membership sites, and every successful membership site we see has these three components. All right. Number one is curated content. Now I'm going to say something that's a little counterintuitive from what we said earlier about content. People think their system and their content and their courses are so special. My little snowflake course, and no one else has ever thought of this. Let me tell you something, guys. Everything you ever say has been said before for free. Yes. Okay. But the curated path, the process, the style is yours and unique to you. And that's what you've got to focus on. So you need a curated path, a curated process, curated content, and an exact step-by-step blueprint. That's what should populate the inside of your membership. And that's what's going to draw people in initially. So that's usually where we have people start. Focus on your curated content, your path, your process, your style. Your process is actually the product, not the content itself. Okay. The next thing that we have to have in place is community. Like, most people that we see that fail at memberships think they're going to take their old course, chop it up into 10 parts, and people are going to pay for 10 months but that's not true. Like, if they go in there and it's just courses and you leave them to their own devices, they're going to stop paying you. Right. But people love people. They will come for the curated path, but they will stay because of the people you draw in. So you want to make sure from the beginning of a membership site that you're creating ways for people to engage with each other, not just you. That's another mistake people make. So you got the curated content, you got the community, and then the last thing is leadership. Like, you want to be out in front leadership. Now, some people who are shy or introverted say, well, I don't want to be like dancing around like you, Shane, or whatever you do. No, you can lead in a lot of different ways. Jocelyn leads our forums. She loves forums. She doesn't like to get on camera, right? I love being on camera. So I lead in Q&As twice a month for our community, right? And if you can put those three things in place, if you can provide people leadership and a vision and a direction, and if you can provide people, because everybody's lonely right now. We've been locked in our houses by ourselves for a year,
Exactly
right? And then a curated path that delivers a result.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just you have a path. It's got to actually do something. You got to be able to prove it. But those three things inside of a membership, you almost can't fail unless you're not marketing it correctly, right? Because that's going to create that. And again, it doesn't matter what's actually inside. Like we had one guy come in one time and he said, do you think this would work for a membership site? And we're like, what? And he goes, I raise Venus flytraps, but it's like at the level of bonsai trees. Like I'm in this community of Venus flytrap enthusiasts. And I think it would be a membership. And we're like, I guess sounds great. And I'm like, what's your process? And he's like, the bonsai tree for the Venus flytrap. Okay. And it's a community. Like there's actually other humans who like this Venus flytrap thing. And he's like, oh yeah, man, they're rabid about it. They absolutely love it. I'm like, okay. And are you willing to lead it? And he's like, sure, man. I love it. I love talking about it. I'm the chief Venus flytrap enthusiast. And I was like, all right, dude, go do it. He goes out, he builds a membership. He's making his full-time online raising Venus flytraps. And it's just because he put that in place. He went and created content publicly that drew in the right people. And he was already plugged in to places where his avatar were already hanging out, right? So he was able to process it correctly. So if you got those three things, man, those three pillars of the membership mindset, you can build some amazing communities online of people who love to give you money every single month.
So that comes back, Tom, a full circle back into the scenario of understanding who the hell you're selling to, right? And getting a deep understanding of who you're actually trying to get to do what you want. And I think that's the danger, is that you know, he knows who he's talking to. He knows what they like. He knows what they probably read. He knows where they go because he's like them, right? So in that situation, if that stuff is what people kind of forget, they kind of think, well, you know, I won't worry about knowing them very well. I'll just try and sell to the masses. If I can sell 1,000.
No.
You want to sell to 1,000 people $50 a month, then
you want to sell to the people that are with you. That's what you want. Like when we actually reevaluate our avatar. I mean, I've been in business 10 years, and we reevaluate our avatar quarterly because things happen. The market changes, your prices change, and like if you don't reevaluate that, like you don't just do that at the beginning. Like every quarter, you got to say, all right, who are we selling to? Like we just had a price increase in January. The email list became really unproductive for the first 2 weeks. And I immediately was like, this is an avatar problem. We've done something, we've positioned this in the wrong way for the avatar of people we've built onto our email list. And we reworded the sales page a little bit to talk in better language to the avatar. We retooled the avatar and the list started becoming productive again a few weeks later. So this is something you always have to ask yourself, who am I talking to? Who's coming to my restaurant? Like, you know, some restaurants like are really popular for a while in town. And then over 10 years, 20 years, the clientele gets a little older and the younger people stop coming. Well, if you keep having karaoke and disco night on Thursdays, the older people are going to stay home. Like you got to have bridge night and you got to change.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I go to this restaurant, for example, right, and we go twice a week, is that because we don't eat out. We used to probably eat out a bit more than that, but don't eat out as much. We pretty much have the same thing. It just sounds like you're having the same thing, but you're not really, because it's only one, you know. And so I just walk in, we sit down, and they deliver it. I don't order it, right? I don't.
They know you.
They know us, right? So we just sit down, right? And so that's a huge selling thing. I think if they said to the people, look, we'll recognize you somehow, and that could be that you just log in, right? So collect their information, log in, recognize you, and you have the same order as you always have. That cuts down that whole thing, because I don't want to sit there paying for an order, waiting to come see me, put an order in, then wait and get and ask questions and then come back. It's like we have the same thing. It's easy, just the same thing. And we've trained them that way, right? We deliberately did it that way because I didn't want to have to go through that crap. Right?
That's right. And just bring me my stuff. I'm here. I have arrived. Bring me my things.
Right? And I think that's a huge thing that no one's ever thought of in a restaurant game outside the regulars, right? But if you're a regular somewhere, like think of Cheers sort of thing, right? Everybody knows what they drink. So the reality is that sort of thing, mentality, is understanding your customer well. They understand me well. They understand exactly what I want. But for some reason, they haven't figured that out for anybody else.
And the thing, what's awesome, here's what I love. Here's what I love about the membership model over course sales, coaching, e-commerce, whatever, is in those things, you got to sell to somebody and then you got to find someone brand new to sell to, almost always. Yep. And we call that living launch to launch. You're just living on your next blast or launch or whatever. But in the membership game, they come into your ecosystem and the tools are so crazy good now. Like we use a platform called Kajabi. And it has all of our sales stuff. It's got our CRM in there that tells us about our people. Like, we know what course people have watches. And if they've not been logged in for 3 or 4 days, we can say, hey, Mike, where you been? Like, you can automate some of these things that give that regular feel to your membership. And like, people come like to our Q&As. Like, we have 2 Q&As every 2 weeks, right? Or a Q&A. And it's like we're so established. People love when certain people ask questions, or people like, the regulars, like, that guy's here all the time, right? And the membership model gives you the ability to create that same dynamic for your online customers. And that's what keeps them staying there, is they become your people that stay with you month after month and year after year. Now, I want to also say to everybody eventually quits your membership, right? Like, it's not like you're going to stay. You don't just sell it once and 20 years from now, they're still there. Some people will, but you're going to earn your customers' trust every month of your membership. That's our goal, right? Like, I want to earn your paycheck. I want to earn what you send me with value, with service. But man, you get that going. Like, there's this guy named Paul. Yes, every week he's the first one to share his success story. We share wins at the beginning of the Q&A. Everybody loves Paul, man. Everybody wants to be Paul. Paul. I make Paul a big deal because Paul's there. He shows up every 2 weeks, right? Yeah. And you just can't accomplish
can't miss
that
it now.
Online.
Like, he can't miss the call because it's Paul's call.
That's exactly right. Now, if you don't have that and you bought a course, well, you might ask for a refund. You might ask for something else. You just can't do that in any other model that we see online.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think at the end of the day, like, that recurring model means that you can focus on what's important. So I think in that case, I guess your 2 focuses is getting members and keeping them. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. We sell one product. Every course we have goes in the membership. There's no question at a team meeting. And what I love about the recurring revenue model too is, like, once your numbers are established, like, I know what I'm going to make tomorrow. I have a thing called a future income report. I know on average how long people stay. I know how many people have joined and how many people have quit. When you put that math together, you can literally predict your income 6 months, a year out, and to really great accuracy, like within 80-90% probably. And that gives you so much freedom in your life. Like, my wife and I, we don't work after 3 o'clock because we pick up our kids from school. We come home. Today, I was feeling a little burnt out because my daughter had she's an elite cheerleader. We cheerlead all over the country in these competitions. And so we came home and I was blasted, man. We had a cabin with like 12 other families. And like, it was this huge, like 30-room cabin, and little girls were singing karaoke till 2 a.m. It was ridiculous. I will never do that again. Give me a hotel room and silence from now on. Right. But I came home blasted. I was so tired. Had my team meetings Monday. And yesterday did some podcasts, and I got up this morning and I said, you know what I'm doing all day? I'm watching movies. And I laid out on my back porch and I just watched movies. And I texted a buddy of mine, and he goes, you're not going to do anything today? And I go, nope, we'll make money. I'm good. I'm just going to sit here. Right. Like, I don't have to live launch to launch. I don't got to do anything. I'm just taking it off. And like but having recurring revenue is the only way that you can do that in online business or any business, because your floor becomes higher than everybody else's ceiling. Like, I know how many thousands of dollars we're going to make in April of 2021. Now the ceiling is how hard we want to work, right?
Yeah.
Right.
How much you want to push it.
But when you've got that floor of recurring revenue, it makes everything else. You can still do all those other things. It just becomes easier.
So, and one thing I noticed in a lot of people do courses is they run amok, right? They have 300 modules and very elaborate and very complicated. Is that really the best way to go about it? Like, at the end of the day, like, if you end up saying, oh, you've got 50 videos and you've got hundreds of pages of content, is that what someone's buying?
Well, here's what people are buying. And this is, I don't care what you're selling, but if you're selling memberships, this is what people are buying. They're always buying the next step, right? So our podcast, then when we started the Flipped Lifestyle Blueprint, it was only like 7 courses. They were very categorical, big picture, theory kind of stuff. And then over the years, as people have asked us hundreds and thousands of questions, we've added modules to really get granular, right? So we have dozens and dozens of courses. But when you log in, we ask you about a series of questions. We figure out where you are, and we say, oh, you're in phase 1. And then you go in phase 1 and you watch 1.1, which is a 20-minute training, and you got a little workbook, and then you go post in the forum, and then you work on that until you're done with phase 1. I had someone in our forums today say, I've had phase 1 on repeat for 3 months, and I finally got it and I'm ready to do that. Right. And like but some people will watch phase 1, they'll do it in a day.
Yes.
So what we're focused on in the membership model is the next step. Here's your next step. Let's work on that till you're done. And then here's what's cool. You complete that next month. They need their next step. So they pay you again for the next step. So yes, you can have as much content or as little content as you want. 80% of your teaching will be done with content, and 20% is that Q&A part. You got to have that too, right? But all you got to do is sell the next step and figure out where people are in their journey and help them find the next thing. We have a rule for our customer service and our community managers. Every answer should have a link to the Flipped Lifestyle Blueprint where they need to go next. Don't just tell people, good job, way to go. Figure out where they are, show them their next step, and they will pay us next month. So that's what you're doing with memberships.
Because it's interesting, and it's probably the teacher coming out in you, right? So normally when you go to school, they don't lay out the entire curriculum.
Yeah, here's your calculus test in 5th grade.
Yeah. And so the reality is what you're doing, you're spoon feeding them step by step because their skill level isn't high enough to handle the big stuff at the other end. So you've got to take them step by step, right? But the beauty of a membership course to me is that you don't have a situation where you're tied to a schedule. Whereas a lot of these course launches where you basically, module one. And
they drip. The people I tell people to do this all the time. Never drip your content. Like some people try to turn courses into membership by here's chapter 1. Next month, I'll give you chapter 2. That's horrible. If people get stopped, they're going to quit.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Don't drip stuff out. Like let them go at their pace. Provide them everything like a supermarket. If I want milk, I go in and get milk. If I want eggs, today I'm getting eggs. Whatever I need today, I need to be able to buy, right? And then just keep them down that path. That's what builds retention. Don't hold anything back. Just figure out how. But you got to be the guide. You're a lantern bearer on the road, and you got to walk the road one step in front of them and say, "Watch this twig, watch this hole," and you got to help them get to where they need to be. Don't just leave people in your content without any roadmaps, right? But if you do that, they're going to stay with you for sure.
Makes sense, yeah. And I think that's the danger is that people just think, well, I'll just lay out this big long course and they'll keep paying me every month and for a year and, I'll just keep sending me emails and they'll show up, right?
No, they won't. Like there's 10% of your people that will take all your content.
Yeah.
There's another 10% that will come to all your live Q&As. There's another 10% that just loves you because you talk funny and you show up for them, right? There's another 10% that just loves to talk to other people besides you in your own community. And you got to provide all these paths for everybody. You can't just rely on the content. The content is the thing they need, but it's your job to get them in there and help them continue moving through it.
Because I saw a shocking statistic once that said that 98% of courses are never completed.
Oh yeah. That's just how the world works, man. That's like when you go to church, there's 10 people vacuuming, and you go to school and there's 5 people volunteering at the gate to take money at the thing.
The old 80-20 rule.
Yeah, but you can trick the 80-20 rule. That's what's amazing. Like with the membership model, you can beat the system because, okay, let's say 80-20. I'm just going to go easy here. 20% of people love your content and they want to take your whole course. Yep. Okay. Well, another 20% want to come and ask all the questions at the forums while everybody listens. And another 20% want to listen to those people ask the questions. Yep. And another 20% want to call customer service every day. That's like the old lady that goes to the doctor just to have some company, right? Yep. And then you got another, so you can slice it up where you think more strategically and you're like, okay, the 80-20 rule is true. Well, how do I give each cohort what they want? And you can do that in the membership model. You cannot do that with courses. Basically.
Yeah. I actually read an interesting book about, it's called 80-20 Marketing, so Perry Marshall, and it talks about
book.
Yeah, the 80%, 80-20 rule, but then he says, well, the 20%, what's the 80-20 rule on that 20%, and what's the 80-20?
Oh, yeah, right. Keep chunking it down, man,
Yeah. And I remember the story in there talking about he had a room full of people, like 100 people that about domain names, and they said, how many people in this room have one domain name? And, a lot of 80, 90, 100 people with their hands up, right? And then as he went through the list and said, 100, 200, and then in the end he says, some guy still had his hand up. And he says, how many domain names do you really have? And he said, 10,000. It's like, there's your customer, right?
The 80-20 of the 80-20, right?
Yeah, and he was the one out of the 80-20, the 1%, but he was the 80, the 20% of the 80% right down to that little level. And 10,000 domains. They had more domains than everybody in that room combined. And imagine the bill for that, right?
Oh yeah, man. I'd hate to see that renewal. I got about 300 and I don't want to ever look at it. Whenever that thing starts flipping, I'm like, oh gosh, I need to get rid of a few of those.
Yeah, I reckon there should actually be a domain anonymous group, right? There you should actually come and
dude, it's one of those things, man. It's like, I don't know why that's the common thread. I don't care if you're introverted, extroverted, city person, rural person. Once you go down this rabbit hole, you're going to wake up in the middle of the night and go, man, I really need gobuybananas.com or something. I need that domain name, and you will buy it. And that's just the way it is. And you got to clear them out it's just that's like the entry fee. You got to pay. That's what everyone has got to pay to be an entrepreneur on the internet today. Right.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the biggest problem though is you start a lot of websites, you never finish, right? So I think that the nice thing about membership sites and that kind of thing to me is it forces you into thinking focused on one thing, and then you focus all your efforts on around that thing rather than trying to build out different businesses all the way, because most successful businesses don't have 10 different businesses. They just have one. Like, Uber, all these different businesses you look at, they only really do one thing normally.
That's right. And like you can deliver one, like if we tried to sell courses, like I got courses on everything, like email marketing, sales funnels, all the stuff, right? Membership. I mean, it's all in that one place.
Yep.
But the cool thing is like here, I've done podcasts where people only wanted to talk to me about daily email marketing. That's all we talked about, because I do that. And basically we just talk about that whole thing. What's cool is though, I can highlight things within the one product, just like a supermarket will have a sale on beef or something. That's the poster this week. But at the end of the day, I can just point people to one place and say, hey, go try this. It's that thing's in there, and you can just go to that place and get that one thing right now.
Yeah. And I think that's the secret. I think the biggest problem with entrepreneurs is the pretty shiny syndrome, right? They tend to want to make things more interesting for themselves, so they'll start another business.
Memberships beat the system. Memberships beat. I can have shiny object syndrome and make courses and just stick them on the shelf. And now I'm cool. I get to play both sides of that coin.
Get out of the system.
Right.
All right. So, in summary, what was the one thing you'd tell yourself if you started 10 years ago? The one thing that you should have done, that if you gave yourself advice back then, you could do a Bill and Ted or whatever, and go back and tell yourself something. What would you tell yourself?
I know exactly what this would be. It's start a membership, because at the beginning so the first email we sent out was like, hey, 200 librarians that have on our list after we've worked for 6 months. If we made lesson plans for August of 2013 or 2012, would you buy them? Then we sold them August. And then the next month we were like, hey, email list again, would you buy these again, please? And then we ran out of money. And that just kept going. And we finally realized, 7-8 months into it, oh, wait a minute, we could just charge them once and bill them every month. Right. And I know there's a lot of people out there that I respect and know and love that teach the course model and teach grow a list. And all those things are really important, really, really important. And probably the best thing we did early by accident was grow a list. Right. But build recurring revenue into your business from day one.
Yep. And
it will always be easier to go to the next level. You'll have less plateaus and you'll have less stress because you're going to get paid something. And that's really important. So I would definitely tell myself to start a membership from the day I started.
Make recurring a focus.
Make recurring a focus.
Yeah. And I think that's the question.
That's the core offer. Everything else is gravy.
Can I make this reoccurring?
That's
a question you should ask
yourself. Can this be reoccurring? And hey, anything can if you add community and coaching. That's it.
Yes.
That's a membership.
You add value. It's a recipe, right? Like you make a cake, you add value, you put some icing on top, people will buy the cake.
That's right. Put a little chocolate chip on there, and more people buy the cake. Stick the Oreo in the middle. More people buy the cake. It's still a cake, but it's got more stuff on it. So.
Cool. So we could probably talk all day about this, but I can't try and keep to an hour. So, from what I understand, you can go to the website called flippedlifestyle.com, right? So that's the website they can go to, and you've got a free trial there or something. I think you mentioned.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. The best place to hang out with us is on our podcast over at flippedlifestyle.com, FLIPPED lifestyle.com. We have 2 shows a week. They're all about membership sites and helping real people. You can also go to flippedlifestyle.com. That's FLIPPED lifestyle.com/evolve. I got you a special landing page for all your listeners, John. And but we got some bonuses there that we're going to give to your people. And everything we have is free for 30 days. If you want to come try out what we do and learn about online business, get your idea, create an avatar, go out and build a membership site. We teach it all, and we give you unlimited full access for 30 days. Kick the tires. Check it out. Our mission is to help family-focused entrepreneurs build amazing online businesses that give them the freedom that I did not have when I walked into that principal's office that day. That's our mission in life, man. And we'd love to help your people over at flippedlifestyle.com/evolve, man.
Nice. And it's nice. Like, I think the thing that what you did there is you have an exact mission and exact why you do something.
That's right.
And you clearly communicate who you're looking for and where you.
Hey, listen, I started out, dude. When we started, it was all about the money because I just wanted to quit my job.
Yeah.
But then
nobody cares about that, though.
Nobody cares about that, right? That's right. And then two things happened. Number one, when we were making money in the education space, we weren't teaching nobody how to do this.
Yep.
A friend at church asked us to help her quit her job, and we did. And we realized that we could change people's lives if we would just tell them what we were doing. So we started helping people. Yep. And then the second thing was about 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, I got a call from my babysitter, who was actually that original old lady that ran the place. She adopted my kids after what happened to them, man. And like, so she was standing there. My son flipped and almost broke his neck on a trampoline.
Wow.
And we took him to the hospital. I mean, it was 3 hours of him in a neck brace in traction. My wife walked in. Jocelyn passed out. I'm standing there in the middle of an ER, my wife on one side, my son on the other, and I don't know what to do. So I prayed again, right? And then, but thank God he was okay. And when we walked out, dude, it's a funny how fate works out. I looked in the mirror just like I had when I left my job that day. And this time I saw Isaac, and I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, man, I'm okay. I'm glad you were there." And I knew at that moment that we had to dedicate our life to giving people these choices and these options. And that's what we do, man, at Flipped Lifestyle every week. Nice.
Excellent. Great. Fantastic to talk to you. And maybe we'll talk again sometime soon.
Anytime, man. I had a blast, man. I got to come down to Australia. We can hang out. We'll go to that restaurant, and maybe I can be a regular.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can be like me. You can just walk in and order, right? You don't have to order.
That's right, man. Maybe someday.
It's your restaurant. You own the place, right?
Hey, man. Hey, listen, I appreciate you for, I know it's a big deal when people allow us to talk to their audiences, man. I just want to thank you for having me on the show.
That's excellent. Much appreciated. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Good job, man. That was that was fun, dude.
That was fun. Hey, I'm just going to stop the record because I want to make sure it saves.